Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today we have a great guest on that is making dynamic moves in the IT, the technology space. Because one of the big things that a lot of businesses kind of struggle with is really that relationship between their POS system, the relationship with their customers, all the data and everything that kind of flows through that, and the return process is one that can be very, I guess you say it could be a weakness for a lot of businesses if you don't have a solution like our guest is going to talk about today. So definitely stay tuned. So without further ado, let me bring on my amazing guest, Barbara Jones Brown. Welcome to the show, Barbara.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here, Terrell.
Absolutely. Now, before we jump into the details of, like I said, the amazing, solution that your product provides, I mean, it's definitely huge for retailers.
Yes.
And before we jump into that, tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, sure. So I get this question a lot. People always ask me, how do you know so much about returns and these issues that retailers face? I have a 20 plus year history in the retail technology space. I was part of a startup company in Austin, Texas, which is where I'm from, that was creating probably the first, what I call pretty point of sale system. We were using Java, which was brand new back then, and we had built this POS system that you could click on. It was, a beautiful interface. And so we got acquired by Oracle, and they actually took that software and turned it into one of the biggest point of sale systems that large retailers use. So I kind of got thrust into this by seeing a startup go from like 25 people to 200, being part of that first founding team, and always just thinking in the background, man, I could do this. This is what I want to do one day, is build my own company. And that's how it really started.
Nice. It's amazing when you have the privilege of talking to someone like yourself that, that has seen the evolution of something that seems so just naturally ingrained to the way we do business. Like, I mean, a POS system, like I remember, I guess when I was younger, before POS systems,
Yeah, exactly.
what doing business was like, but it's like now POS systems are like so ingrained. So I mean, I'm curious for you, what was it like seeing the evolution of that over time?
Well, Tara, I'll tell you, I started out my first career, my first job was a cashier at one of the local grocery stores. And so I remember being called into the office because my till was $100 short. And that was like a big deal back then. It's like, you feel like people are accusing you of stealing. I'm like, I know I didn't take any money out of the till. How did this happen? But the systems back then were basically a calculator. And the cashiers had to do a lot of fast thinking with the kind of process things in our head, and sometimes you could just get off. And so, getting called into the office with $100 short in the till was like, I was going to get fired. And so I remember having that experience and then getting a job interview with a company that was building cash register, which is basically point of sale software. I was like, what? This is a dream come true. I've been a cashier since I was 15, and they love me because they're like, Barbara, you got the real world knowledge. You can help us really build this application because you've been a cashier. So it was just a beautiful marriage made in heaven, and the rest is history. I'm still in retail today after starting with that company.
Nice. I love it. Now, I guess over the evolution of it, are there things that you see or capabilities that you see about POS systems that you see now and you're like, oh my gosh, like this still amazes me when I think
Yes.
about where I started.
Yeah. Where I started was a small screen with black background and white letters, which was basically a calculator. To today, you can walk into these, Amazon stores with no cashiers in the store, pick up your stuff, and everything is added up on your phone. You walk out, you get charged. That's the evolution. I mean, we're really gonna kind of get rid of the person standing there taking your money. It's just going to be automatic. It's going to be our cash, that cashier, that POS system is now on your phone. And I'm just excited about what's, the evolution of retail and retail technology.
And that's an interesting point you bring up because I remember when I was little bit younger when the self checkout lines first came
Yeah,
into the
remember that? Yeah, I remember that too. I remember that. Yes,
And
and that
it was amazing how, I guess, just to see, I guess, where there were some who kind of struggled with adapting to that, and then there were some that were early adopters. And it's like I kind of see the same thing now, or with with being able to doing like the checking out on your phone, where it's like, hey, you don't have to wait in line. It's like you see, like I was in Sam's Club recently, and it's like you see some people are going to the register where there's a attendant there that can scan their stuff. Some people are doing the self checkout, and then some people are
yes.
going through this line to where other people are watching them and like, are they stealing? Like, what are they doing?
Yes, yes. The stores are trying it out. They have the self-checkout lanes, they have the cashiers, then they have those just the go lanes where you kind of walk through and keep going. And the things they're testing is what really our application, I know we're going to talk about soon, kind of helps them with is the fraud around it. When self-checkout lanes first came out, I think the stores they were using them were probably losing more money than they were gaining by having the self checkout lanes because people didn't know how to use it. They weren't scanning everything, and people were walking out. So that technology has to evolve to where it starts now trying to protect them against the fraud. And so that's
Mhm.
kind of what happens with each one of these systems. As we introduce something new, we test it, but we have to see what the holes are, close those up, and then it becomes widely adapted. But yeah, I remember that too. Self checkout lane. I remember when they came
Mhm.
out.
And, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because that's where I was going to go next. I mean,
Yeah,
is when you think about, like I said, the evolution of it is as technology, is new technology and new processes are introduced. There
right.
are holes or fraud
Yes,
opportunities that
yes,
didn't exist before.
exactly.
So it's kind of like this two-piece thing where it's like the technology allows us to do something new, but it also
Right.
introduces us to new problems that we weren't prepared
Yes,
for. So,
yes.
from your perspective, I mean, how have you kind of seen, companies adapt to recognizing those new gaps that they
Mhm.
have, and, how do they start, really thinking about trying to solve them?
Well, one thing I always tell companies is, you're innovative, but so are the fraudsters. All right. So they see this new technology and the wheels start turning. Like, how can I get around the system? I bet they didn't think about this. How can we break it and see how much we can, really steal from these retailers? So that happens every time these new pieces of technology come out. The retailers innovate, but so do the fraudsters. And so that's what we always, try to communicate to retailers is yes, you have to worry about sales, but if those sales are falling out the door because of returns and fraud, you're not going to make your bottom line. So you have to really think about both sales and then these what we call uh, sales reducing activities (SRA). So you have to think about both, or you're just going to lose all the money you got through your sales.
Mhm.
So what we so the evolution is that whenever this new technology comes out, when we do these testing, what we're doing while we're testing it is to kind of see where are those holes. How are people going to compromise the system? Try to be ahead, maybe at least one step ahead of the fraudsters and what we think they're going to do.
Mhm. Gotcha, gotcha. And and it's very interesting because I was watching a I guess it was an excerpt of a talk, or it might have been the whole talk that you did done back in, I think it was 2017 down in
Right.
Atlanta, where you were introducing people or telling people about the concept of what freeing returns does. And when you talked about, the amount of loss that
Yes.
happens to
Yes.
fraudulent returns,
Yes.
and to me, it was like, I was like, wow, I didn't realize that much is being lost in
Yes.
fraudulent returns.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's in the billions. All right. And that's what a B for people who may not have heard. CNBC did a report, I think it was this year, that they said that returns would soon be a $1 trillion issue for retailers. And by soon, they're talking about next year. And so right now, it's a $500 billion issue. But next year, we're thinking it's going to be a $1 trillion issue. And you can just imagine, think about it. We can buy things online, return them, get our money back, or we can say, oh, I never received it, get another item. Start thinking like a fraudster. Wait a minute. So I can return this, or I can say I never got it, get two of them, return one, sell the other. Start, you have to start thinking like, how are they thinking? And something that's happening now, which is like mind-boggling to me, is some retailers are saying, don't even send it back. We'll just send you the money back. Because the cost to them of trying to handle that merchandise coming back is greater than the merchandise itself. So they're like, don't even send it back, but think like a fraudster. I
Hmm.
can now buy items. I don't even have to send it back, and I also get a refund. So it's like
Hmm.
the doors are opening for the. I mean, the frosters are having a field day right now. It's like, wow, this is like taking candy from a baby. With all the technology and innovation, we're just making it easier for a lot of people to commit fraud.
And that's an interesting point that you brought up because I remember like several months ago when my wife and I were going on a trip and I was buying some new beach shoes and I ordered a couple because I was like, I don't know which one I'm gonna like the most.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
came in, I got them, and then there was one I'm like, okay, all right, I really like this one. I want to keep this one. I went through the return process and then they were
Yes.
like, yeah, just keep them. And I was just like, I was like, wait, let me make sure I read that right.
You heard them right. They're like, don't even send it back. Because think about it. COVID changed everything. You don't want to handle this merchandise. You don't know what it's been through in somebody's house. Is it infected with something? You don't want to be that retailer trying to restock something, ends up making somebody else sick. It's just so many protocols now that sometimes it's just easier for them to say, keep it. Don't even send it back. It's just too much of a hassle. So an honest person like you is like, wow, I didn't know that happened. But think about if you're the type of people that what we call these organized retail crime rings. This is the kind of things that they go through to where they're trying to look at where the holes at. And then they get a group of people. I mean, it's whole rings of them that find these little holes and they just exploit it. And by the time the retailers find out, they're in and they're out. Millions of dollars already stolen before the retailers even find out. And so that's what our technology is really designed to do is help retailers stop this very quickly and close up these holes.
That's very interesting because we're at this. I feel like we're at this point in time where, the technology is only going to continue to
Yes.
advance. So it's not like
Yes.
retailers can say, well, hey, there's too much risk using technology. We're going to go back. So it's like they can't go
No,
back to old school. They have to. It's like
definitely not.
they have to adapt their safeguards to the level of, like you said, of risk that
Mhm.
exists with this new, like the new technology allows them to get their product to more people faster and more
Right.
efficiently, but it also exposes them to more risk. So
Yes.
I'm very interested in talking a little bit more about kind of the way that your product solution really helps address part of that problem for them.
Yeah, yeah. So I love talking about it. Our platform is called Freeing Returns, and that's freeing returns. It's really freeing these retailers and the rest of us from the hassles of returns because when retailers are losing money due to returns, it's going to come back to us because they have to raise prices. And so we all suffer with this type of fraud. So what our product does is it really empowers retailers to get access to the latest and greatest returns management applications. And these applications, there's all kinds of applications in the market that are very innovative to stop different types of returns fraud. But for a retailer trying to keep up with all these applications, trying to integrate them into their existing systems, it's too much time and money. They can't focus on that because they're trying to get innovation for sales. And so that's what we saw as the challenge is when retailers are faced with where do I spend my money? Do I spend it on the things that are making me lose sales or fraud, or do I spend it on how to get more sales? They go for that, how to get more sales. And so they leave these holes exposed. And so what our application allows them to do is integrate once with us. And then we do all the integrations with these very innovative returns management applications. Then the retailers are able to pick and choose what they want without going through all these one-off separate integration projects. They have one platform that they integrate with, then they have access to all this innovation. So they can innovate quickly and be able to, keep the frosters from ripping them off. If something new happens, we have a new integration, they can grab that and keep it moving. So that's what we want to do is just save them time and money when it comes to these system integration costs.
Wow, that is amazing because one of the things that I've learned, I mean, from my background is accounting and finance and working for like companies like General Electric and other, multi-billion dollar companies,
Yeah.
every time we had to implement a new system, it took
Yes.
like a whole team of people, and I could imagine
Yes. A whole
that.
team in a long time. So that's
Yes,
time
and
and
then it
money.
was it was like, so many people. I remember we were trying to just upgrade because there was an issue that happened between
Mhm.
two systems trying to integrate data.
Right.
And by the end of it, we end up having like this whole new stack of data integration tools
Yeah.
to where
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, we needed all of this to just solve this integration problem to where I was like, wow. And like I say, we're living in a world where it's not like we can go back to say, hey, we're not
Right.
going to keep moving forward with technology.
We
Technology is
have
going to
to.
keep evolving, and the data integration is just so critical. So
It's very
I'm
cool.
curious. I'm curious, as you work with your different clients, what have been like some of the feedback that they give, or some of the expressions that they give when they see your tool work?
Oh my goodness. So this is the part we really love, is just showing new retailers our platform. You should see the looks. I mean, sometimes we do record it just so we can learn from the sales process. And we go back and look at, while you're in talking to a retailer, especially me, because I'm doing most of the sales, I'm concentrating on, trying to look at them and get the point across. But when we go back and watch the videos and look at their eyes while they're looking at our demo, it's like, you see the amazing, like, wow, we don't have anything like this. When can we get this tool in? We need this like yesterday. And so that's the part that we love, is that we're bringing something that's very innovative. They don't have it today. And a lot of times the teams that are responsible for keeping the fraud from happening, keeping shrink from happening, are not the teams that are like in the limelight. So they're the ones kind of people forget about. They don't get all the cool tools. And so to be able to bring a platform and a tool to those type of teams that's innovative, helps them do their jobs really quickly, that allows them to get access to the tools they need, and something that's not too technical to where they have to be a computer programmer to use it. We just love looking at our customers, hearing the feedback, and just seeing the excitement that they can have a tool like this to help them do their jobs and become that hero in the retail chain that solved maybe a multi-billion-dollar issue for them. So that's what we love, is helping empowering these loss prevention and asset protection teams.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. So now, where can people find you guys online, to learn more about the product and learn about more about what you're doing?
Sure, sure. So we actually have a website set up just for our product. It's at www.freeingreturn. That's it, freeingreturns.com. Now that's freeing, FREEING, returns with an S.com. You can learn about the platform. We have videos on there. We have information about, the different types of tools and applications you can get. And also, hot off the presses, we have put our application in Shopify. So we normally work with like really big retailers, biggest of the biggest retailers in the world. But now the application is in the Shopify App Store. So any Shopify store owner can now get access to returns management for their stores as well. And that's going to be released in early next week. We're putting the application out. So we want people to definitely support us. Download that application. It's called Freeing Returns in the Shopify App Store as well. Go there if you're on Shopify, download the application and get access to a tool that can help you manage returns for your store.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. It's one of those things when you look at, it's like I said, some of the major retailers and the major retail lines, like they may have, multiple people dedicated to fraud prevention. But if you're, a smaller business using
Yeah,
Shopify, like you don't have the resources to
exactly.
dedicate an entire team to it. So I love what you guys are doing there of, taking a solution that you created that are helping major companies, but it's
Right.
also a solution that can help smaller and medium-sized businesses.
Yes. And that's really, Terrell, that's why we did it, because we have been working with retailers for years, and being able to take that expertise. And like you said, these Shopify store owners, sometimes it's just one of them. So they're trying to do everything, manage the store, manage the online presence, handle items, customers. They don't have anybody working on returns. And so some of them don't even allow people to return it, which is a
Mhm.
death. You're not going to buy something from someone if you can't return it. And so
Mhm.
we empower them to add returns, but we give them a tool so that they can also manage returns. So yes, we love working with the Shopify retailers. Please download the app. It will really help you manage returns for your stores.
I love it. I love it. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk, I guess, two more things. One was, recently I saw the post of the support that your business got from
Yes.
Google. What was that like?
Oh, you see the smile, Terrell, when you said that. So Google not only gives you a whole year of access to Google programming, which includes some of the Google developers. Now, any tech company, just imagine getting access to Google developers, right? So that's what we get access to programming. They also gave us a six-figure non-dilutive funding. And so, I mean, it's everything: money, access, and talent. So that's what we asked for. We were so excited. I think when I got the call that, and they didn't tell us, they just called us and said, we're going to have one more interview with you. I was like, oh man, let me get ready. And so I got on the interview. They asked me all these questions. And I was like, man, I hope I answered them correctly. And at the end of the call, they said, Barbara, you're already in. You're fine. You won the grant. I was like, what? You're in the fund. It's a 12-month program. So I was jumping for joy. It was embarrassing. I hope they didn't record it, but tears, like, oh my Lord. So that was so exciting, Terrell, to get that. First is validation from Google, getting the access to them, and then getting the funding. We all need that as a small business. So it was a great day.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And before we wrap up, one question I love asking every guest that comes on is, when you think about where you've been in your journey and just where your industry has been as well, and how you've evolved and how the industry has evolved, what's two pieces of advice that you would share with the audience?
Okay, and you're right. The industry has really evolved. I have evolved. And one thing that's a real passion of mine and what my company name stands for, the company is Lilly R&B, and it's Lillii, and that stands for Let's Imagine Life with Ladies in IT. So that's one thing I've seen that evolved is more women, more ladies are getting into the IT field. So if you're on Clubhouse, please join my club, Let's Imagine Life with Ladies in IT, where we really just encourage, celebrate, and just want more women, help more women get into the IT field. But what I would tell entrepreneurs and business owners is that the first thing I learned after 8 years in business is I am not, I can't do everything, right? I have to trust my team. And that was hard for me. I'm a control freak, I'll admit it, but I had to learn to trust my team. And that's what I tell everybody. Do that first. Don't find out the hard way like me. Trust your team. You're working with these people. Allow them to do what they do best, and you do what you do best, but trust your team. The other thing I would say is build your business in abundance. All right. A lot of us are building our businesses in lack. We don't have enough money. We're scrimping, we're scraping. That is not the way to build a business. I learned this year how to raise funding for my business, not only from grants, but also from investors. And now we're able to build this business in abundance. And it's been our best year ever. So those are the two things. Trust your team and get the funding you need so that you can build your business in abundance.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Barbara, it has been a pleasure of having you on as an amazing guest.
Thank you, Terrell. It's been so fun being on. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.